get your tinfoil out, find the nearest straw hat, and wrap that bad boy in the tinfoil because I found some crazy lore and just crazy implications from chapter 1041 of all places, which is near the height of the rooftop battle on Onigashima. Using observation Haki, Kaido realizes Charlotte Lin Big Mom's voice is gone. He briefly reminisces on his moments with Big Mom and cries out that they just swore an oath to claim the One Piece together. And here's the moment that threw me. Using Future Sight, he sees Luffy attacking him in an awakened devil fruit form. Now this is chapter 1041. Luffy does not awaken from the dead, awakening his Nika form, until chapter 1045. And for most of you, I want you to stop doing the dishes, stop looking at the video game on your other monitor, and look at this panel. Does this future Luffy that Kaido saw at the height of battle look like the sun god Nika form we end up seeing? And if your intro is no, like it is for me, which is why I have this tinfoil straw hat on my head, then what is it? Well, Kaido missaw the future because not even Future Sight could see the CP0 agent come in to interrupt their fight, changing what was about to happen. So I'm not surprised this did not get too much attention at the time because yeah, it looks like the Sun God Nika form, but not really after the more context that we have in the current story in the manga. So if you're an anime only, manga spoilers are ahead, so do what you will with that. We're going to be talking about the Sun God Nika and Elbaf, and a few things that happened in the second half of Egghead Island, further implying that Kaido saw Luffy about to awaken. Immediately Luffy starts pushing him back like he does in so many big points and so many other arcs, giving him his little speech like, "This is my final Gear 4. Your ambitions mean nothing to me, especially if it leaves the people here with no food to eat. I'm not stopping until I've run out of strength." And Kaido says to himself, where are these punches coming from? Further adding that Kaido was seeing the future when he saw the awakened form of Luffy, he says during the next chapter on 1042, don't assume you're the only one who can see the future. Kaido and Luffy go back and forth with huge blows. Everything's going as Kaido saw. And then the checkered fate rears its ugly head. CP0 interferes. Luffy dies. The future Kaido saw does not come true. So what happened here? Kaido definitely used future Haki and definitely saw what Luffy was about to become. What Luffy was always supposed to become. For almost the entire story minus the first half of chapter 1, Luffy has eaten the human fruit model Sun God Nika. But in Elbaf we learn that the Sun God Nika has 3 different versions of the same story. There's the god of destruction, there's the god of freedom, and there's the god of laughter. And I don't know about you, but Luffy's version of Nika has always looked more like the god of laughter than anything else in the series. So this other version here might have been Sun God Nika of liberation or destruction, but I think more of liberation because at this moment Luffy's thoughts were in line with the liberation of Wano, but he died. And that surprise death along Luffy's checkered fate changed his fate into something different. He woke up as a sun god, and when the sun god awakens, Zunisha cries out that Joy Boy has returned. He hears the drums of liberation for the first time in 800 years, which is very important that we know that this Gum Gum Nika fruit does not necessarily awaken into the sun god Nika of laughter. It is a fruit that could have awakened into other forms such as liberation or destruction. And the Harley text, an important historical mural on the Atom Tree, states that the first world, the enslaved prayed and the sun god appeared, making this the sun god of freedom. Because we know what Vegapunk said about devil fruits. They come into existence simply by being wished into existence. I wish I was free, so then the sun god appears, giving me that freedom. In the second world, the sun is said to have spread flames of war. Men kill the sun to become gods. So if I had to apply a type of sun god to the world 2, it would be the sun god of destruction. It is in World 3 where we hear the sun god appear again. The sun god dances and laughs, guiding the world to its end. So I have an entire lore video going over this mural, And the only thing I want to adjust to that at this time is that the third world might be the current world plus the world from the Void Century. That the third world might encompass that entire time period. But what are we really here for? What does it mean that the sun god Nika fruit can awaken different versions of the same sun god that has appeared multiple times in history, that has appeared at various points in history? Like, given the Harley text Meryl, is the world doomed to keep repeating itself until the sun god of laughter appears again, which it obviously had? Like, if Luffy awakened his devil fruit, just like Kaido saw with Future Sight, into something like the sun god of liberation or the sun god of destruction, would that mean that the story of this third world, if it's actually true and going to happen, does that mean that they would surely not actually meet? Would the sun not return? Would there not be a new morning? Is this all part of the checkered fate? These are questions that I'm going to be thinking moving forward into the story. This moment also answers some really important questions, because remember, Emmet, the Iron Giant on Egghead Island, did not awaken with the Mother Flame, Vegapunk's closest imitation of the ancient energy that propelled that kingdom into a hyper-advanced future, because when Luffy goes into his Gear 5, Emmet's eyes open. Emmet briefly falls in battle at one point to the Five Elders, and he's like, "Joy Boy, where did you go?" And then Bonnie awakens her freest self along with Luffy, and at that point, Emmet reawakens, gets amped up with ancient energy, and gets back to going. The important part in all this is that Emmet attacked Marijoa 200 years ago, meaning he somehow received enough ancient energy to turn on and go on a rampage in Marijoa, and then just run out of energy for some reason. But because of what we hear from Zunisha after Luffy starts awakening as the sun god, we know that the sun god of laughter, the same version that Joy Boy had, the one that Luffy now has now that he died and came back, that's a version of the sun god that we haven't seen in 800 years, because Zunisha hasn't heard that beat in 800 years. So that now makes it much more likely that the sun god Nika fruit had been awakened before, just not to the god of laughter version. Remember, it's the sun god of laughter that is ultimately leading this world to its end. This implies that there have been other Gum fruit users that were major players in the world, and some of these Gum fruit users may have awakened it into a sun god Nika version that was a god of liberation or a god of destruction. After all, we see different versions of this same story in Elbaf. We know about the sun god of liberation from the same myth of the Buccaneers. After all, the Buccaneers are a race born into slavery for a great crime they committed a long time ago, and we know in the first world that the slaves prayed and the sun god appeared, which would be the sun god of liberation. Now, who might have been these other sun god Nika fruit users? The first thing that comes to my mind is that giant frozen straw hat that Emu keeps locked up in a safe, and Emu walks to the safe with a bounty poster of Luffy in their hand and is checking this hat, being like, "Hey, it's that same damn hat. I thought I waxed that ass a long time ago. How is this hat back?" Which now implies that between Joy Boy and Luffy there had been another sun god Nika fruit user, a sun god Nika fruit user who awakened it and failed. Which takes us to Thriller Bark, which I talked recently with my friend PK Buggy. Please subscribe to the channel because that video is coming out very soon. And we talk about Oars a lot because Oars turns out to be very interesting in the modern context of One Piece, because he's this legendary ancient giant from 500 years ago who is known as the continent puller, that he's pulling continents together or something, which is reminiscent of Wano, which we know is several islands all kind of pushed together to form a single country. Now, Oars is related to the Frozen Straw Hat because when people were wondering whose Frozen Straw Hat is this, everybody was like, that's gotta be Joy Boy's. Joy Boy must have been a giant. But guess what? We've seen Joy Boy. We've at least seen him from perspective. He's not a giant. He does not appear to be a giant. Let's just get that out of the way. He appears to be a regular ass dude, just like our boy Luffy. So if this isn't Joy Boy's former hat, whose former hat is it? Well, it's ginormous, and two other people that wore straw hats are sun gods. That'd be Joy Boy and Luffy. And don't you think Oars was almost a little too comfortable using the rubber abilities of Luffy's shadow during Thriller Bark, truly believing that he can stretch? The Straw Hats go out of their way to make the point that it's weird that this zombie thinks it can stretch, right? It's a little weird. Well, maybe at one point he really could. As the Straw Hats are figuring out a way to fully defeat Oars, Chopper, using his medical knowledge, is like, hey, I can tell this guy's been frozen and he has severe frostbite. One of his arms is not even the original arm. And they're like, damn, this big guy must be stupid as hell because he's not even wearing any clothes. Like, he just went into, like, the cold and got frozen. Idiot. But what if he isn't a complete fucking idiot? What if he was frozen in a battle? A fight for the fate of the world? Surely a chili fruit user would have the ability to freeze them in the right conditions. In that process would also freeze a giant straw hat, which Emu took back to Marijoa as some sort of trophy or something, because maybe they were like, this is the sun god of destruction. They're going to lead the world to its end. I got to stop them. I'm doing the right thing. I got to live forever because I'm the only person that could even possibly have the chance at stopping them. So I have to like take on all this burden, take on all this pain. Maybe that would give Emu an actual reason to the things that they do. I've been trying for a while to come up for a reason of why Emu would want to be alive for so long. Why Emu wants to live. Who are they doing this for? It makes no sense. But if Emu is doing this because they think they're stopping the destruction of the world, that makes a little bit more sense. Now, to just drive in the nail that Oars was very likely a previous sun god. During the Paramount War on chapter 555, Oars Jr., a descendant of Oars, is trying to save Ace. And as he's trying to save Ace, as he's kind of getting the conviction to die for Ace, he remembers the moment when Ace and Oars Jr. became friends. Ace gives Oars Jr. a straw hat. This is a straw hat to protect Oars Jr. from the sun. And so I cannot drop the suspicion that Oda is trying to say to us that Oars Jr., Oars, they both have the sun god of either liberation or destruction somewhere in something like their bloodline elements. He's purposely drawing at least a connection between the two. So with the current lore that we've gained from the second half of Egghead Island, from the early parts of the Elbaf arc, and especially the Harley text, when I go back to chapter 1041 and I see Kaido use his future sight to see Luffy awakening his fruit, to see it happening, but it's not the same Sun God Nika that we know from the story. That's something different. And if you're like, oh, he just used future sight to go super far into the future, Big Dad, Kaido's just built fucking different. Well, guess what? Kaido kills Luffy by a stroke of fate that he didn't see coming. You can see that reaction on his face. And so what does Kaido do afterwards? He runs around Onigashima and he's like, Straw Hat Luffy's dead. You guys are all fucked. Fuck you. Fuck everything. Why did Luffy have to die? And he goes and rants, and you have to assume, even just to say those words, it's got to take, I don't know, 10, 15 seconds at the minimum. And during that time, something unexpected happens. Instead of the sun god of liberation, instead of the sun god of destruction, one of the two forms that was about to emerge on the rooftop of Onigashima, finally the story from the third world has a chance of coming to its end. For the first time in 800 years, the drums of liberation are playing again. It is the sun god of laughter, and Zunisha specifically calls out, this is Joy Boy. This is the person who left the One Piece. This is the person that promised a new era for the world. This is the person that set forth everything in the story to finish the conflict, from 800 years ago. I'd love to hear your comments and thoughts and feedback down in the comments. I have a video coming out very soon with me, One Piece YouTuber PK Buggy. We go over Thriller Bark in a fun, cool conversation going over some big themes, really showing off how awesome Thriller Bark actually is. Thank you so much for watching. I'm grateful for all of you guys. Bye bye.